morning, GameCity. Good morning. That was pathetic. I know we're all very tired, but let's try again. It's the last time you have to do this, I promise. Good morning, GameCity. Good morning. It's better. It's still not good. Everybody's just as tired as I am. This morning, we are going to have an even more casual show than we had yesterday because I can't remember who I asked to be on, apart from these two. These are the only memorable people that I spoke to yesterday, I'm afraid. That's just what lack of sleep does to you. This is Eleanor and Jenna, Ellie and Jenna, only Eleanor if she's in trouble, who are going to tell us about their game in a sec. And then what's going to happen is, after they've spoken for about 10 minutes, I'm going to open it to the floor and say who wants to come up and speak about their game. Caveat, you have to be showing a game at GameCity, okay? Not just anyone, all right? We have standards here. So do you want to talk about the game that you're showing?
Yeah, totally.
What's it called?
So the game we're showing is called PET, which is an acronym of Personalized Entitative Technology.
And also spells a word. Anyone? PET. What does that spell? No? Nobody knows. It's a mystery.
It's a good start.
So what do you do in the game?
So it's a pet simulator, which is sort of after the fashion of Tamagotchi, but the way it came about was in response to a brief by the Wellcome Trust. So they're currently doing an exhibition which is sort of about the way our attitudes towards the natural world have changed and evolved over time. And that's sort of taking into account things like zoo animals, things like sort of natural history exhibits that we put up now, and it's to do with the way that we relate to the natural world and the way that we interpret the natural world kind of in relation to ourselves. So me and Jenna were sort of talking about this after the brief, and the conclusion we came to was that our most tangible connection to the natural world growing up was through pets, and also through pet simulators that we both played.
Yes, we both killed a lot of Tamagotchi pets in our lifetime. And but that was the clue.
Okay.
Too young.
Should we explain what Tamagotchi is for, in case someone's really young?
Wait, but I'm young. I know what a Tamagotchi is.
Okay.
You're giving me a crisis
All right,
here.
okay.
A Tamagotchi, for anyone who doesn't know, little round keyring thing with a little digital pet inside that poops and eats, but mostly poops and then dies and turns into an angel with wings.
But that was the key for us, actually, when we were thinking about pet sims that we played, was that Tamagotchis died, and that's been lost from the digital pet arena. So we kind of wanted to bring back the stakes.
Wanted to make a pet killing simulator.
Yeah. But it was important for other reasons, that there was an impact on your treatment of the animal. I mean, that was super important to us. The ethical binds that pet keeping places on owners. But we were looking at also a projected future to tie in with the exhibition with Welcome, which was what would the future of pet keeping look like? Might we have virtual pets in the future? So that was the beginning of the thinking.
You're also talking about genetic design, right? And breeding pets to look a particular way and the effects that can have. Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. So that sort of came in a response to documentaries like Pedigree Dogs Exposed. There was also sort of a psychological slant to that, which came out of sort of response documentaries like, sorry about that, there we go, which was like The Secret Life of Dogs, that sort of thing. So one of the aspects of the games is that all the choices you make about your pet will affect sort of its quality of life and its eventual welfare. So even some choices you make during customization can affect its welfare in the same way that certain breeds of dogs, which have sort of very extreme physical conformations, can develop physical problems as a result of that.
Okay, so what are your different roles on working on the game?
Well, we're co-creators.
We're co-creators, but Ellie's the developer.
Yeah, so I do all the code.
Okay,
and that
and
sort of thing.
I'm a writer by trade. So
Okay.
we both came together because we studied the NFTS, and we'd done projects. So I was on the screenwriting course, Ellie's on the games design course. So we'd done many projects together there.
That's how the universe brought us together.
So there will be, even though at the demo there isn't at the moment, there will be quite a strong narrative element to the sim, which was really important for me on the project because, well, I'm coming in as a writer. I want there to be a story. So we're kind of we don't know if it's been done before. We were trying to push a narrative within a sim game where each iteration of of the life cycle of your pet pushes forward a story about the two researchers who created the project. Initially, it goes very meta. So you go from a sort of a research project that's looking at the prospect of digital pets in the future through to a sort of a plucky tech startup because they've realized that people are becoming bonded to their animals, these not real animals, through to sort of a super successful commercial entity through to a megacorp type thing called Omniscience towards the end.
Omniscience.
Yeah.
Very dystopian.
Yeah. So each life-death cycle pushes forward the story. So that's what we're gunning for.
And that was kind of partly in response to another thing that we found in our research, which is there's actually a psychological term called the Tamagotchi effect, which is the process by which people bond with non-living objects.
Okay. And how much of this was briefed by the Wellcome Trust? Were there specific things that they wanted you to explore within the games?
Not very specific, really. It was quite a general starting point. It was something that had to do with how we relate to the natural world, and sort of, I suppose, present questions, ethical or otherwise, that are part of that.
But the main brief was make it fun.
Yeah,
I mean, we were
absolutely.
worried at the beginning that it might be an educational game, which is a bit
Yeah,
of a
which is
scary
very
term.
very much not what we were set out to create. So.
And having seen my friend play it for like 15 minutes straight, just giggling the entire time, I think you've probably achieved that. Can you explain what the current build of the game is like and what you do in it?
So currently we've got a customization system up and running, so you can do things like you can change the proportions of your pet. So you can give it a really long neck or really long legs. You can change things like the type of ears that it's got, the type of nose that it has. You can change the markings, the coloration of it, and that sort of thing. And that sort of affects how it animates when you kind of go into the simulation portion of the game. Your mates were having a lot of fun with that
It's
yesterday.
kind of, the character creation tool is kind of like a Spore-esque type thing where you pull different parts of the animal to make it a certain shape, and then it figures out how to animate that. But then the part that comes after, I mean, obviously you'll have a full game when you've worked on it more, but currently you have this kind of, how did you describe it? Like a VR type?
It's a VR style sort of camera, so it's a 360 kind of window on another world kind of thing that we were going for.
Like a
so
parallel reality.
Yeah. So it's wherever you move the tablet, that's where the camera's looking into the world. So you can do like a full 360, and it's like you're standing in the world with a camera on your face.
And then your little
around
pet
like that.
bounds along to make sure that it's
so
in view.
it knows sort of which direction you're looking at, so it'll sort of try and find you if you look away.
Very cool. And I want to quickly ask you, before I think Keith has a question in a sec, but I want to ask, at the NFTS, did you see a lot of people working across disciplines like this? So people coming from script writing and working with people in games and more stuff like that?
Yeah, it's encouraged as much as possible. So, increasingly, it's sort of interdisciplinary world where you work best if you can, particularly as a writer, you can move across mediums. So, I work with games designers, animators, fiction directors, everyone.
Oh yeah, I just want to expand on the virtual pet element of it. In what ways in the full game will you kind of interact with your pet? Will it be like because you have this virtual environment? Will you be looking for food for them? Will you be having to plant food for them? How will you care for them in your game with the sort of intrinsic element of virtual pet games?
So the food system I'm actually working on at the moment. So I'm trying out a couple of different prototypes for how that might work. But there'll be sort of basic kind of welfare needs that you'll need to meet. So there's feeding, things like cleanliness, mental stimulation, that sort of thing, so play. But then there's also sort of a capability for your pet to form associations with things around it and the world around it and with you as a player. So the idea is that each experience is going to be a little bit different because each pet will have a slightly different personality and will come up with a different set of ideas about its own world and about you as a player. So it's sort of,
So are you using artificial intelligence?
Yes, we are using artificial intelligence.
What form of artificial intelligence are you using? Because I'm writing a lot about this at the moment.
Oh, right.
Very exciting.
Okay. You probably know more about it than I do.
I doubt it.
I mean, I'm not sure what the terminology would be for it, but basically, there's a sort of a central processing center, and there's kind of a number of scripts that go off from that, which take in information from around the world, like when the last time was it was fed, when the last time was it was played with, things that have happened to it that have been unpleasant, things that have happened to it that have been pleasant, and then that all feeds back into the central system, which then sort of makes decisions about how the pet's going to react to things that happen to it.
Awesome. And if people want to have a go, where should they go to check it out?
They should go to Lee Rosie's tea room, and you can have one of about 40 different types of tea whilst you're playing
It's
it.
nice in there. They've got a window and everything.
We have got a window.
Some of the other devs showing their games don't have windows.
We're also going to have a short teaser demo that's going to be releasing in about a month's time, which you'll be able to download on iOS and Android, and we're going to have a release of the full game of spring next year.
And if people want to follow you online to keep track of what you're doing, where should they do that?
Well, we're on Twitter at PET the game. So I've got lots of little business cards. So if anyone wants to come and nab one off us, you can have one of those. And yeah, so it's at PET the game. We've also got a website which is www.xylophone-games.com.
Nice.
/PET.
Capitalize on that game studio names that start with an X.
Yeah.
Stand out. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on and telling us about your game.
Thank you.
Okay, hands up. Who else did I ask to be on the show this morning? You. I asked you to be on the show. Would you like to come on now, or are you waiting to get food? I'm fine now. You want to come on now?
Yeah.
Cool. You can have a microphone. Here you go.
Wow, what a treat.
Hiya. So this is a game that I played yesterday and that I liked a whole lot. I don't know if you've had a chance to play it. It's the one about the train that I was telling you about.
Oh, no, I've not played this one yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
So do you want to ask him what it's about then and see if you can figure it
Yes,
out for his
Hi, we should
questions?
ask who you are as well first.
I'm Jai Bunag. I'm from London. Well, I'm from Thailand, and then I went to the U.S. As you can hear, I can have a U.S. accent. And then now I'm in London. So I'm from a lot of places, but I'm Jai Bunag. And I made Tasenda. It's an ambient mobile storytelling experience. It's for the mobile devices, and it's also in Lee Rosie's. And we're the only two games there, but, you know, we have cake and a nice window, so I suppose that's our main draw.
I think you've done well compared to some of the others. So how do you? So what happens in the game? You said it's an ambient narrative experience. How does it work? Jordan told me a little bit about it.
Yeah, of course. So you're on a train. I suppose you're a disembodied train conductor of sorts, and people come on the train and people leave the train. Each of them have a unique story, and each of them has a unique design. But they can leave whenever they want, and you as a player can leave whenever you want. So you just tap and hold to interact with them. It's very easy, but it's the kind of game that you can play while looking outside the window at the passerbys and somewhat listening to the story in the game at the same time. And that's it.
Okay, so what's the visual representation? Do you see the inside of the train, or do you see the windows? Do you see the passengers?
Ooh, tell them about the size of the windows.
Yes. I'll start with how it looks first, and then I'll talk about the size of the windows. So it's a three-dimensional train. You can rotate and you can look around this train. But then what you see is passengers sitting in front of windows, and the train doesn't actually go anywhere. But whenever you talk to someone, places come to the train. And these places have to do with the stories that they've told. And what I'm supposed to tell you about the windows is that someone asked me yesterday whether or not it could be played not on a mobile device. And I said, no, it must be played on a mobile device. In fact, it must be played with these proportions, because the train itself is designed to match the proportions of an iPhone window. Okay. Like, the doors are in that proportion, the windows are in that proportion, and I think I'm skipping straight into hard concept here, but we were trying to make a message about, it was made for commuters, and we were thinking that there would be a really great dynamic if you were on the train looking into the window of fantasy of a game, but then looking out from that window of a three-dimensional train out into a story that was from the real world. Because I didn't mention, but all the stories are real stories collected from the BBC's Listening Project. So looking from a window into fantasy and looking from fantasy out into reality. So yeah, there was a dynamic there that we wanted to do.
Do you want to talk about why specifically a train? So you had kind of two reasons for this, right?
Yeah.
There was the metaphorical and then the literal.
Oh, absolutely. So the first reason was I used to be an architect, so sight is very important to me. So the first reason was that you were in the right mental state to play. you're not actually like, this is just my own personal thing, but I don't think that you're most alone when you're in a room by yourself. You're actually most alone when you're in a room surrounded by people you don't know. And that's the right state to play this game, because what it really does is that it was a response to when you start seeing a mass of people as a faceless group, right? You stop seeing them as individuals. But I think what we were trying to say with this is that everyone is a main character of their own life story, and that they all are unique in their own way. So that was the first reason. The second reason is that most of my influences come from anime, and in Japanese culture, the train has a long-running metaphor for a journey, for an inescapable journey towards something, and generally it's death or some sort. So, in some sense, this is very much a purgatory train space where everyone is dead, and you are. It's not stated, but you're a train conductor who's talking to them, listening to their stories about their life, and letting them move to the afterlife. So it's a bit of a confessional space. Yeah.
That's a nice hope that when you die, there'll be a wonderful disembodied train conductor to listen to your life story, isn't there? Do you want to talk about some of the stories that you've used? Give some examples.
Oh, we should say what the BBC Listening Project is, I guess.
Oh,
as
of
well.
course. For those of you who don't know what the BBC Listening Project is, it's a Channel 4 radio program in which they go around and they interview people from all across the UK about just everyday life. And we very carefully crafted and selected a series of 20 for this demo, which range from a kid talking about what not to ask for Christmas, but ultimately deciding that he likes presents too much to not be spoiled, and a woman talking about whose husband is in a coma, and she's deciding whether or not to pull the plug, and how she's going to go back and tell their children that their father is dead. That's the first half, and the second half is her asking for a divorce from her dead husband so that she can move on with her life. And so this set was originally designed for Dare to Be Digital's Play, in which the audience is like 10 to 15. But we wanted to populate it with stories that we felt children might need to hear, but were starving for because we kind of limit the content that's available for children. And this is a very approachable way of getting it to them. And we made a couple people cry. So the first girl that we made cry, she was listening to a story about, I forgot what it was, but it was a woman who kept pulling out her hair and she eventually became bald. But this young girl said that it reminded her of her mother who had cancer. And she ran off crying, and I was like, yes. Because the connection is really what we were looking at for.
Okay, so if people want to have a go on the game, they can come and play it here, right?
They can come and play at Lee Rosie. Like you mentioned, we have a nice big window and tea and coffee, and I think that's a really nice way to enjoy the game. But it's also free for on the App Store. And
so if you think you might cry, maybe play it on your own at home.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind watching you cry. It's quite it's quite a benefit actually. But a lot of people have asked me if it's on the Android store, and I'm like, no. And they ask me why. It's because I have an iOS system.
Because the windows have to be a specific size.
Oh yeah, and it comes in a variety of different sizes.
Oh,
that
okay.
is the Android devices. No.
Cool. And if people want to follow your work?
If you want to follow our work, my Twitter is Finifugu, which is Finifugu. I use a lot of weird words. The project itself is called Descenda, but Finifugu means in fear of an ending, so we'll never stop working on our stuff. So #Finifugu.
And do you think you're going to be making more games using the Listener Project in your train? Do you think you're going to add to the stories that you tell?
All my projects that I have planned for myself are essentially proposals. So this is a proposal for extension of broadcasting for the BBC, in which it can be an ongoing series, in which, it's just another way of accessing Channel 4's Listening Project, but in an interactive way. The BBC has talked, I've heard the BBC talking about how they want to make their broadcasting more interactive to hit, number one, a younger audience, and number two, make them more relevant. And I, in part, proposed this. This is just a demo of a proposal of a series that could exist. So unless the BBC takes it, I'm not going to continue it.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Super interesting. Thank you for coming on to talk to us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
else did we say could be on the show this morning? Look, a lot of hands. Did you really promise this many people could be on the show?
I can't remember.
That's fine.
I was
Do you wanna
drunk
come
with
up
this thing.
next?
Yeah, come up.
What's
Come
your
up.
name? Oh, you need that. Here you go.
Okay, I lost the mic again.
Thanks. Okay, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Lucy, and I have written and directed the voice actors for 2001: A Space Felony.
2002. So 2000
Like a ratio,
colon 1.
yeah.
Right. Okay. And what's the rest of the title?
A Space Felony.
A space felony.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Or How I Came to Value My Life and Murder Mercilessly.
An excellent title. And what's your name, sorry?
I am Gary, lead designer on 2001: A Space Felony.
Okay, cool. So Lucy and Gary. Okay, so your game was where was you played this game? Where was it available?
We're in the rough
Played it,
trade.
yeah, I'm having to play it now. Like, I played to your other game.
Oh yes, we
Um,
have two games here.
Yes, yeah.
First one is one that I worked on my own, which is also set on a train, but far less. Oh yeah, a bit closer.
Right up to your mouth.
Right up to my mouth. It's a game based on an Agatha Christie book, Murder on the Orient Express. We've called it Disorient on the Murder Express. It's a sort of parody of sorts, and I made that on my own about 2 weeks as a result of a game jam. And I just wanted to make a sort of follow-up to that, which was a bit more ambitious, so I brought Lucy on board, and I brought on a programmer, and it's much bigger and much better. And
I feel like people should maybe come to you for titles for their games because these are both pretty good titles.
We've got a few more titles for upcoming games. Like we want to work on a third murder mystery, which is a Western one called The Something Several, and there's also a possible follow-up title to that as well. But I don't want to make two Western things. I don't like doing the same thing twice. But for Several Somethings More would be a really good follow-up title for that. So maybe I'll just have to do it just to keep the joke going.
Do you come up with the names first and then make
Sometimes.
a
Sometimes
to
he
do
makes
it.
a whole game just because the
Definitely.
title is funny.
That's as good a reason to do it as any.
That was sort of the case with Disorient on the Murder Express. I came up with the idea of, the title first, because I heard about this game jam that was up and coming, Murder Mystery, and I was like, Disorient on the Murder Express would be a good one. And then I heard that Agatha Christie estate was involved, and then I got texted a few hours into the game jam that I hadn't turned up to, saying, it's literally the Agatha Christie thing, make stuff based on Agatha Christie, do this. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I worked on that one on my own, because by then everyone had chosen a team. So I just, but
way
as
too late.
I've done a few game jams before, but then actually working on my own made me produce, which was probably the best game jam work that I've ever done. So I was really happy with myself there. But as for 2001, I came up with a title after the concept, but I did start working on it based on the title, because of course, based on 2001. How, why, what, and where.
Hal, why? What is
But the robot is called Mal now
But
instead.
I also swore that if I was going to work on it, it wouldn't be called that, and I would come up with something else, and I eventually did. So.
Yeah, that was a working title.
Okay, so what did you do on the game? Sorry, did you say, Lucy?
I wrote the script and I directed the voice actors.
Oh, okay, and Keith, you said you really liked the script, didn't you?
I have not played that game yet. Script on the other one, which I've been assured. Yeah. I've been assured the 2001 has a better script.
It most certainly does.
Which makes it really
When
good.
we work together, we're a lot better than
Yeah.
just me on my own.
So can you tell us a little bit about 2001?
Yeah. So the mystery, unlike in Disorient on the Murder Express, where you don't know who did it, you've got to work out who did it. You're told in the introduction of 2001 who did it. The robot did it. Of course the robot did it. But then you've got to figure out how and why and what and where. But there's... so you are sent up into space, and you arrive at this ship a year after all of this happened, because you've just been fired like a bullet into space. You are space judge, jury, and executioner, and mostly detective. That's how you're referred to, at least. You arrive at this ship, and your mission is simply to find out what happened in the year since communication was lost. And of course, you find everybody dead. Everybody's dead in very elaborate ways. There's a lot of evidence just placed around the place, and you have to discover all of this evidence, go into the Mal, his name is in this, Mal's central control room, which is full of screens. It's vaguely based on the 2001 Hal's brain room, but it's much bigger and more elaborate and bizarre. because our programmer is absurd and came up with a really great concept for it. It's covered in screens, and these screens will have all of the evidence that you've discovered on them, and it's your job to ask. You can present these evidence in one of two ways. The first is, Mal, what is this? And he'll tell you what it is, but it's almost certain that he's going to lie about it because he's lying about everything. And then the other way to present the evidence is, this contradicts the last thing that you said. So you've got to sort of navigate these conversations with him using this evidence in two ways, which is, what is this? And this contradicts you. And you've got to discover this huge, elaborate mystery in which 5 people have died.
It's like Phoenix Wright in space.
Absolutely. I played a lot of Phoenix Wright to do this, but yeah, no, it's in a way it's kind of a little bit, I hate to say this because Phoenix Wright is so good, but it's a bit more ambitious in the way that it actually works, because Phoenix Wright quite often will lead you to a place and then expect you to present a thing. In this case, you lead yourself to that place through really bizarre branching paths. And we've always been a little bit worried about the communication, because this is the first time we've put it in front of a few people, and we have, because it's brand new, we've ran into a couple of issues, but they're fixable. We're really happy that this absurdly elaborate game is actually holding up nicely in front of people. So,
Okay, Lucy, tell me a bit more about the script then. Did you have to write different branches and are there different endings, or is it all the same?
Is the microphone working?
Do you want to swap?
yeah, absolutely.
You can just share one.
Thanks. Okay. Sorry, what was the question?
Oh no, just I want to talk about the process of writing the script. So how long is the game, and are there branches in it, and what was that like having to write the different?
Ooh, it's sort of, I'm going to ruin a secret now. Yeah, there are 2 endings.
Oh, sorry, spoilers.
Yeah, but one is very, you have to take a lot of initiative to find it, and the other one is what most people end up with. And yes, I did have to write a lot of different branching things, because the way that the evidence is presented to the robot, if I said the microphone and the bottle,
just hold it really close.
If I said the microphone and the bottle, he would say something totally different than if I said the bottle and the microphone, like depending on the order you present
that's
it to him.
interesting.
Yeah, so the writing process took about 40 hours. I did it all in the space of like 3 days before we came here.
Wow, that's
So,
incredible.
Yeah, it was very tiring, but very fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
How long's the game then? How long does it take to play through?
It's about half an hour long, I think,
Half an
depending
hour.
on
A good
how
game
you play
session,
it.
yeah.
You can take longer or shorter. It totally depends on the player, really. But I'd say that's about average.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you find it working on the game then? What was the process like?
Great fun. Kind of stressful as well, of
Sure.
course, because we were like, let's get it done by GameCity. And it was a bit ambitious to be trying to finish this in 6 weeks. And I came in the last week, gave him the script. Then
Wow.
so script for 3 days, and then we travelled to Cardiff to record our voice actors for 2 days in a row, all day, both days. Then 1 day of break, then packing for GameCity, and then here. So it's been relentless.
What was it like directing the voice actors? How many?
It's great
You
fun.
just got 2 of them.
Yes.
Okay.
We have Max McLaughlin and Adam Palter-Pauls. They both went to the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, and they're both excellent. Very easy to work with, very talented people.
Okay.
And I'm kind of friends with Max anyway, and so is Gary. And
Okay.
yeah, and Adam came in kind of at the last minute. Max was going to be both characters, but he's Scottish, and he said, well, for the American character, instead of getting me to do an accent, get this guy with the deep voice to come and do it instead.
Everyone loves a guy with a
so
deep
we got him
voice.
in at the last minute, and he's been great too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what's it been like showing at GameCity? What have you found it to be like?
Well, great fun, and very interesting as well. It's useful to hear feedback. A bit terrifying as well, like when the BBC or the Guardian want to interview you about it, but in a good way. Just a little bit of anxiety, but in a good way. It's exciting. So.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you very quickly about Disorient and the Murder Express, which I quite enjoyed, because it's he's kind of like a drunk detective who's found himself on a train where there's been a murder, and it's I found it quite a funny story, especially because you can press a button to drink all the way through.
Yeah. There's no frames of animation as well. It's just straight up,
just
to
straight
the face,
up,
straight down,
yeah.
and for as long as you hold
We've
it.
all been there.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't you say that some pretty big YouTubers have played that one?
Oh yeah, I was really surprised to find that Yogscast and some guy called Matt Shea. I've brought him up to a bunch of people, but not many people seem to have heard of him. But he seems to have more views than Yogscast. So okay, and so I was like, oh, these guys have played it. That's really good. So the game so far only has about 2,500 downloads, which is way more than I ever expected it to. I expected about 40, most of which would be friends. But I think it kind of blows my mind a little bit that 500,000 people have watched a game that I made, which, because I worked on it on my own, it ends with the credits thing of a game by Gary Kings, and I'm like, oh, people have...
So
oh,
500,000 people have seen that.
They immediately forget it afterwards, but they saw it with their eyes for that second.
Their own eyes.
With their own eyes, and that's kind of amazing to me. And after I'd gotten that one project done, I was like, I could probably do better than that, and maybe more people would want to see that.
I think you should do more games with drunk detectives in.
Oh, absolutely.
It's quite good because I like and at the end you've got to try and assemble all I won't give anything away, but you've got to assemble the people who have who you think may have committed the crime. And you kind of point at them and then point at the things the stuff, the evidence, and it's just kind of like this guy drunkenly pointing at things and drinking, and I just think it's like quite a really funny.
It's a game mostly about sort of the self-expression of things, because I was really frustrated with games a bit like L.A. Noir's the real easy target on this one, but just a lot of games which involve walking around and finding clues and letting the game explain their relevance to you. Instead, I don't hide any clues. They're all right there for you to find. It's all about connecting them. And then the final act of the game, Act 3, it is just... It's like stacked. It's like Lego bricks. You can sort of like form your own accusatory speech. So you're like, and you did this because this, and this. You're like just pointing at all of these things drunkenly. And I encourage people, even though it's not like mechanically enforced, I encourage people to pace back and forth and drink as they go. Like that's precisely why I made the game, actually.
You can stare into the fire as well, dramatically.
Yeah, that's how I had to find a way to actually end it. Once you finished pointing at things, to finally say, and so in conclusion, I was like, well, what do you interact with? Obviously, you stare into the fire and say, and so in conclusion. And it's just all about these little absurdly dramatic moments. I really wanted to like play on those and not have the game explain these things to you, or I just wanted it to be about self-expression in that kind of way.
Have you thought about making it into a VR game?
I've
if
thought
it's about
about
self-expression.
I've thought about making both of them into VR games, but I don't think Disorient would work all that well in its current form. Although we do intend to work around with it a little bit for a later Steam release. Oh yes, that's the thing. These two games are both going to be released for free online. The first one already is, and then this one in the next couple of weeks. And then we want to work on a third murder mystery, and then we want to stack them all together into one thing called the National Insecurities Murder Mystery Mixtape. And
so good.
National Insecurities is our team name, obviously.
Oh, okay. National Insecurities. Cool. Got it.
and
Good
so we kind of just have this big plan, because none of these games are quite big enough for us to feel good about selling. And we like the idea of things being free and given out there anyways. But
there are a lot of developers doing that now.
Yeah,
I mean, like William with Crows. They
yeah, but
release a couple
he
games
can
for free.
afford it.
That's true. He has a
we have no money and we're making no money. Please give us money.
Maybe a slight flaw with your business model. I mean, I don't know about games development, but
Neither do we.
All right, Lucy.
We are hoping for a publisher as well for another game that we have on the back burner at the minute. So, yeah.
These are kind of in-between projects, because everything in the industry we found, hope moves very slowly in the games industry. So we've kind of, whilst things are working themselves out with a bigger project, these two projects have kind of emerged. So we're planning on sort of making that a trio and then selling it online. And that'll just give us a bit of firmer ground to stand on when we're talking about making something bigger with someone who has money. So yeah, that's basically our plan.
Awesome. Lucy, could you tell everyone where they should go if they want to play the game?
Yes, come to Rough Trade in Nottingham. It's quite close to the MVA, just down around the corner.
And you guys are on the top floor.
upstairs, yeah. There's no natural light in there, but they play nice music.
Sorry, no windows. Not like the
yeah,
place.
we don't have the fancy windows that everybody else has.
Maybe go to Rough Trade first, sit in the dark, play these games, and then go over to the tea shop.
It's very chill in there. It's a very nice venue.
Yeah.
So.
The staff are very friendly as well.
Yeah. I've made friends with them. Actually.
Cool,
yeah,
awesome.
It's nice in there. And we're in there all day until 6 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So people should head there after this.
Yeah.
Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, and I think maybe we have one final guest. Was that? Yep. Okay. Are you showing a game here? Did I play it? No. Okay, cool. Good. Here you go. Here's a microphone.
Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourself? So neither of us have any idea who you are.
It's funny because I have met you both before.
You've
but very
met us both
briefly,
before.
For about 2 seconds.
Oh, well.
Leamington, right?
Video games.
Yeah, video games. So I'm Chris. I'm the designer from our little company called Cardboard Sword. We're currently working on a game called The Siege and the Sand Fox.
Ah, yes. Now I remember. Cool,
Oh, good.
Cool.
That's a relief. So it's what we're trying to coin the phrase stealthvania. It's kind of it's a Metroidvania, but the focus is basically entirely sort of stealth and parkour. If you think of most sort of Metroid games, the focus is more combat, and we think you're pretty well covered for combat, so we want to do the other stuff, basically.
Why is it called? Did you say it's called The Siege and the Sand Fox?
The Siege and the Sand Fox.
Why is it called that? Is there a fox in it?
There isn't a fox in it.
There's no fox in the game.
It's a great pub name, I think, though, if the game doesn't work out. So I should probably point out, I didn't write it. We actually got some people who can write things to do it.
Okay.
2 very talented friends of ours started a company called Tail Spinners. So it's kind of outsourced, but we got them in day one, and they wrote this amazing story for it, which I'm now going to butcher and give a short version of. So basically, the Sand Fox is a character. It's like an assumed title, like Zorro or something like that.
Ah, okay.
And yeah, a siege takes place, unsurprisingly. But the main thrust of the game is that at the very start, the Sand Fox is accused of murdering the king, and you're kind of chucked down into this bottomless pit. And then you awake, and the rest of the game is basically getting back up to the top
Getting
and
out of the pit.
having a polite chat with the queen who may have framed you for it.
Wow, intriguing.
And it's kind of Consolvania-esque, not Castlevania-esque. Oh God.
I should
I'm
point
very
out it's a
little.
horrible phrase, and like I realized that we use it like day in and day out, but all it really means to us is rather than a sort of series of levels, like say Mark of the Ninja or something like that, it's just one huge map that you can explore in a non-linear fashion. Like you'll unlock new abilities, ways to cross gaps that you couldn't before.
Yeah, but it's one of the two, like Metroidvania games and roguelikes
Yes.
have become 2 really big genres in indie games development. Why do you think that is?
Oh, that's a good question. So roguelikes is, I suppose, the easy one to tackle. It's certainly why we didn't go down that angle. It's obviously, if you can generate your content procedurally, it's very easy to experiment, and you can get a lot of content quickly and kind of see what works, what doesn't. We're stupidly not doing that. Everything's hand-authored. We save a bit by having tile sets. But I think it's that, again, if you have sort of a linear level thing, you'll probably start at the left and you'll probably finish at the right, and then you'll never see it again. We really like the idea that you'll come to live in this space, you'll pass through these areas many times, and I'm sure everyone who's played any sort of Metroidvania game has that moment where there's something on the first screen and you're like, I don't know what that is, I don't know how to get there, and then hours later you go, I can do something with that, and we all really like that.
I'm trying to remember the name of that game where you play as a robot and you dig. Oh, SteamWorld Dig. SteamWorld Dig, another Metroidvania-esque game, right?
Yeah.
So in that one, you start at the top and you go down.
Yeah.
In your one, you start at the bottom and you come up,
Correct.
right? Does it look similar? It's just it works in reverse.
Does it look similar?
I'm trying to imagine paint me a picture.
Okay. So I guess the thing actually I've completely forgotten to mention is, like, I can say this because I've got no artistic ability at all. The art is ridiculously good. The art is actually what started the project. The 2 artists who are actually local to Nottingham but very much enjoy not having to be seen in public, they worked on it tirelessly for probably like 6 or 8 months, and then they just came to us and went, yeah, we kind of made this art and half made a game. Do you want to do something with it? And I just went, yes, and literally I quit my job like, God, not that long after, maybe 6 or 8 months later, because so it's, so sorry to actually talk about the art, to actually answer your question.
No, it's okay. I like this idea of you kind of just sitting there and then these wonderful artists come along and this wonderful writers come along and you're like, sure, I'll make a game out of that.
I think it's the thing that I make it sound kind of casual, but we've all worked in AAA for the best part of 10 years, and we've all remained friends. By volume, most of the company is actually ex-Frontier. So we'd all been doing our own thing, and then just gradually it's all come together. But so the art is it's sort of 16-bit style, and it really suits the artist because they are just like, they'll never take shortcuts. So everything is hand done, everything's hand keyed, everything's hand drawn. And then we're using like the most unsuitable engine ever to just make it look really pretty.
Oh yeah, I was. But I'm going to ask very quickly though.
Sure.
From the 16-bit era,
Yeah.
which of the think very carefully about your answer. Which of the consoles are you most influenced by?
I know what you want me to say. It's funny, you know. I'm going to upset you because you know what? I never actually owned any of them. And actually, the primary influence for this game was I'm pretty sure it's like an 8-bit. It's an old Batman game, which the artists will not shut up about.
Was it the Probe software one?
Probably. They won't shut up about it. We have to keep telling them to.
Right.
So, yeah, sorry, I didn't.
That's okay. Don't worry. At least you didn't say SNES, so fine.
Wow.
You trying to start a war?
Yes.
It's the best place.
Let's talk about so where you came from. You said most of the team worked at Frontier.
Yes.
What were you working on there? Are you allowed to say?
Yes. I hope no one in this room has heard of it, but I worked on a game called The Outsider for about 2 years.
Anyone in this room heard of The Outsider?
Oh, no.
A few.
Sorry. It was worked on for about 5 years, and it was cancelled. So that was my first experience at AAA, which was fun.
Oh, gosh.
And then...
It's all right. We had Jack on from
Oh, yeah,
who
yeah,
used to work at 22 Cans, so it could be worse.
Yeah, Jack is... Yeah, we had chatted to him a little bit about...
about having worked on terrible games.
Well, it's a familiar story. So we all kept in touch, and then I moved to Playground Games. I was there for 5 years.
Oh, you're working on... Yes.
It's fun to see if anyone... It's I find it fascinating.
I live there.
I know. Yeah, I was there. Yeah, for about 5 years, and it was fun. But it was just time. I mean, I think it got to the point where I was so specialised. I mean, you know what? I'm not embarrassed. I should be embarrassed by this, but honestly, I would spend like a whole day doing one road junction in the game, but it'd be the best road junction you'd ever see. And honestly, I took a lot of pride in that. But then you're like, I am so specialised, and there's all this other stuff I want to try, and it's the same for the other guys as well. Like things like Unreal and Unity and stuff like that. For us coming in, having some production experience, which is kind of the harder part, you're like, this is ridiculous. I mean, like the stuff that we can have for free now is stuff that we would have paid millions of pounds for before. Well, we couldn't have done, obviously.
Is it? Do you think it's because a lot of people are now coming into independent development straight from university and making games themselves from the outset, which works brilliantly for some people. But do you think there's something to be said for spending some time at a big studio working on big projects? Has it helped you?
Yes, I definitely do. I think the most succinct way of saying it is when I started and when everyone starts, despite their best efforts, you're basically useless. Like, let's be honest, like you're basically useless. So what you're in a situation, if you go to a AAA studio, someone is paying you to be very bad at your job and give you lots of training, and then you reach a certain point where you think, okay, thank you. I mean, it works both ways. Obviously, you're making a product for them, but I mean, obviously, I'm biased. I think there's a lot of value to it. I certainly think it makes me feel so old, but compared to when I started, like. There's so many resources. I mean, I said, like, us in particular, Unreal Engine, that was, being licensed for $20-30 million, and documentation didn't really exist, and you'd have to talk to them. Now, like, just download it in an afternoon. There's endless videos, endless things, tutorials, people helping. So I think you can get a lot further. I do feel, though, quite strongly that, as in, like, particularly, like, production stuff, sadly, it's not the sexy part of game development, right? But when you're taking something from, I've got a game that kind of works, to I've got a game that shipped and it's finished, is a huge difference. And you see a lot of independents who haven't had that experience really killing themselves to do that. And another part of why we wanted to stop doing it is not to say that we've had experienced too much crunch and stuff like that, but we're just like, we're done. We're relatively old men now. We're not doing like 70+ hour weeks anymore. It's over.
Okay, so let's go back to talking about Siege and Sandfox then. What's the plan for it? When's it coming out? When can people play it?
So we're very guerrilla this year. If you see me, not now, after I've woken up a bit more, I do have a copy on a laptop floating around. As for anything else, nothing to be announced yet, but we've still got a ways to go. Nothing this year.
How does that feel, to be working on something that you know won't be ready for a long time? Because I know this is a problem a lot of developers have.
Well, a lot of it is financial. Like, so I worked it out. I think I'm paying myself about 20% what I think I'm worth. Like, so it's been fun watching. That's the main stress. Like the game, honestly, because obviously I know these guys so well and all the rest of it, I have absolute confidence in. But it's just like, yeah, financially, that's the biggest stress. You just watching your own bank balance just go like this, and watching the company's bank balance do the same thing but faster. So that's the biggest stress. But honestly, like, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Once we got rolling after a couple of months, I was just like, well, it's time to quit my job. Like,
Sure.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Okay. And how can people keep track of what's happening? With the
So
game?
primarily Twitter. We're reasonably good on Twitter. It only took us like a year to learn how to not do a terrible job. It's the Siege and Sandfox, and the website is siegeandsandfox.com. And I must just point out as well, because I keep forgetting, my fallen comrade, Anissa, who is supposed to be here today.
She's poorly.
She's very poorly. She cast her eye with some things, so you should all be following her, though I sort of feel you probably already are. She's Studio Anissa, a really great 2D artist.
Excellent artist. Awesome. Thank you, Chris, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
This was our last Wake Up with the Guardian of this year at GameCity.
We only did 4. It was really quick last year. It was
I feel
like
quite
8.
sad.
So,
Yeah, last year we did too many. I had a little breakdown on the last day, but it was very fun. And
Yeah.
thank you everyone who's been on the show. There are a few of you in here who are on previous days. Thank you so much. It's been really great to have so many people in here every morning watching us, because we could well have turned up to an empty room and we would have had to do it anyway because we're recording it. We would have just had to pretend there was an audience here. So I'm glad there actually was one.
Yeah,
So
thank
I
you
think
so much,
a round
everyone.
of applause for our audience.
Yes, good idea.
Well done to all of you. Now go out there and play some games.
Yes. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.